So, hello, Internet. It's time for another Wednesday's serial. It is I, Matt, the Agent 42Q, and I'm here today. A little bit of class, a little bit of scotch. Speyburn, if you're unfamiliar, it is a scotch that would be what some might call affordable, even though no scotch really is. Except I got it for like $7, so... But... It's nice. For those drinking types out there. Mellow Modesty? Not yet. I swear to God, man. Once that kid hits the bottle, we're in for some awesome reviews. But until then... Anyways, I got a pile this week that's very indicative of many things. And I recently made some alterations to my pull list, so many of you will notice this. I'm just going to come out and say it. I'm not getting anything Spider-Man related as of ASM 700. F that noise, basically. I'm not liking where it's going. I've read some previews. I've heard some things. It could be interesting. I just don't care. Further in cuts, I'm no longer going to be picking up Flash. I was just looking at my list, and it's one of those books, I'm not feeling, but I am going to be regularly picking up a lot more DC now. You've heard me talk about a lot of it. Justice League Dark, Wonder Woman, Red Hood and the Outlaws, I don't think I've actually really talked about yet, so we'll get there when we get there. But, yeah, should be interesting. Also, stuff like Gambit and Fatale are just out. I just haven't been liking those books, and I've opened myself up. I'm trying to, cut the comic budget just a little bit. Really, it mostly balances out, but keep myself a little more nimble to be more likely to try to pick stuff up, hopefully, but I'm still realizing I'm spending a little more than I thought, although I guess if I was watching this, I should have known, right? Also, to those wondering where I was at recently, I spent a lot of time preparing for something called Ignite Boulder. There's an Ignite X city all over the country. Ours happens to be the biggest. It's 5 minutes, 20 slides, and you get to talk about whatever you want. I was talking to try to get more people in the comics, and I wanted to make sure I nailed the presentation, so I spent a lot of time on that. Plus, holiday season, things are wonky, so whatever. But yeah, I was spending time doing that. Hopefully that should be up on YouTube soon, and I will link to that. Also, if you haven't seen it, Graphic Issue 616, me and the Minutia Minute, did something talking about Gail Simone's exit from DC. If you haven't heard about that, or even if you haven't want to hear some opinion-based stuff on that, please go check out that video. It is shorter than normal for that channel, which doesn't really have a normal yet. So let's get to some books. Scarlet Spider is a book that I am dropping, as I said. Minimum Carnage, if you were wondering, is miserable. The way it ended was really stupid. They had this whole thing with Venom about, I need to be a hero, and what separates us is not killing. Except, he's a hard-boiled soldier that's done some pretty horrific things and is kind of on the dark edge anyways, and it seemed really stupid that you wouldn't put Carnage down. It's very akin to something that they're playing with in the Batman angle, which I'll get to, because there's going to be a whole chunk of that. Putting the Joker down. These characters make no sense to not be put down. The way they framed it was just stupid. The whole event was dumb. But anyways, Scarlet Spider, he's reacting and drunk himself into a stupor because of that. Apparently it only takes 3 beers. Thought that was a nice little touch. And you get a lot of play of the side cast that they're building, and it's a bunch of guys dressed up as Santas trying to steal from the apartment where our Scarlet Spider happens to be staying at. It has some interesting points and plays on the fact that this guy's going to do some things that Peter Parker won't, and it's actually a really nice single-issue read. If you're curious at all about Scarlet Spider, I'd actually say this is probably an issue worth checking out. Plus, it's a fun little play on the holidays, and just kind of a nice single issue of comics. But it was nice to see that, you know, this isn't completely crap and that Yost can indeed write when he's left to more of his own devices, but nothing to make me want to not stop getting this, because once I pull the plug from Spider-Man, the interest just isn't there as much. But this is a nice note to kind of end on the very least, and for someone, hopefully it'll be a pickup point. So, you know, worth reading. 4 out of 50 billion. I don't know. That's kind of low, isn't it? Ugh. So next up is Ninja Turtles 17. If you're looking for it at the store, it's probably going to be a different cover. My comic store guy actually hooked me up with a variant just cuz, which was really awesome of him. Though I saw the regular cover and it doesn't suck either. It's actually pretty cool. The biggest notable change here is we have Ben Bates on arts and Rhonda Patterson on colors. I don't know if the colors is a change. Sorry, I'm not that versed in the names. But the art duties on this comic are far superior to what they have been with Andy Kuhn. And if you're reading this book and you like this book and you enjoy this art, I would ask a favor of you to write even if it's just a quick note into the letters column. It's on the back here, letters at idwpublishing.com. Or hell, if you're not even reading this book, you want to do a brother a favor, write and claim you are, and say how much more you enjoy this art than Andy Kuhn's, because I realize Andy Kuhn's a good guy doing what he can, but this is so much better, and it served the story so much better. In that one issue where you're dealing with Splinter and Casey's father and all that, if the art duties were this, that issue might have been the greatest issue of comics this year. I actually thought of that when I've been pulling together lists for the best comics this year, but the art just murdered that book. But in this issue, it's so much nicer. It's not even like the greatest art in comics. It's just so much nicer and fits the book so much better. And it's so much nicer to read this book with art that just fits. But besides that, we're at issue 17. Now, issue 17 on the original run, we were starting to get into a bit more one-off. We were kind of playing between the creators before they came back together for the Return to New York bit. But it was a flashback to kind of feudal Japan kind of ideal. It was a very bizarre but very powerful issue. But here, we're getting this continued narrative. In this one, we're getting a lot of setup. We're playing out the Scar thing. They're in their new home. They're trying to find a step forward. And to do so, they have April talk to one of the scientists from StockGen, who happens to be Honeycutt, the Fugitoid, except he just looks like a guy, so they don't know. But we're getting the aliens, and then we get that moment where the turtles are transported to another world. And what happens next, we'll see, but it's really interesting because now the whole idea with Honeycutt and the two different factions are tied now because one of the other factions is Krang's faction. And so that's going to tie to the Shredder, and it's going to be really interesting how this twist plays out so much differently than kind of the two separate stories happened originally, and kind of play a bit from the classic understanding of the Turtles from the cartoon and the way Krang was there, except it's not quite the same, and it's just... There's a lot of known elements, so you have a lot of that joy, like a lot of the mythos, if you're familiar with the Turtles, is already built, but they're playing on and doing something. It's very much the ultimate Turtles, as I've said so many times. But we're at issue 17, unless you're willing to jump in. Like, this is a slower issue, you could probably sort it out, but I mean, really, like, you have to read the whole thing to get everything out of it, but this is a nice place to maybe pick up. It was an awesome issue, it was a bit quieter, and is going to launch into a lot more action-packed stuff next, so I'm just excited, and please, you know, let the art chores go. I know Andy Kuhn's coming back for some point. Hopefully that'll be for a stint, and then we'll get art that's more favorable to the book soon thereafter. Okay. Atomic Robo and the Flying She-Devils of the Pacific comes to a close, and no comic this year has made me feel like there was a more heroic moment Then when Atomic Robo's on his jetpack and the thing's about to go because it's an unfinished product and the heat coils are about to explode and he needs to take out the pilot he has been able to take out before in several dogfights before, the thing explodes and he comes down, Ingalls is just right and BAM! Punches the guy, the mech thing, but whatever, just, yeah! Just fucking awesome action for a climax. I mean, this book has been action, but smarter, and it's Atomic Robo. It's action science. But, oh my gosh, this is just the best thing. And then you get a bit at the end about, like, being a war hero and generations going by, and it is just the world building that happens in this climax, and then what goes on, and then the idea of losses, and sometimes, you know, having to just move on to something new, and such a great comic, so much in here, and it is the best comic nobody's reading for whatever reason. Dear Lord, Atomic Robo. Next up is my Death in the Family segment, because for some reason they feel the need to just pack them all into one week. But, yeah. So, Suicide Squad 15. We get the bit between Harley and Joker, and getting the sense that Harley's kind of moved on, but then she hasn't. It like goes back and forth so many times between this issue, and it is just a bizarre mess. But you see why Amanda Waller's been putting up with Harley all this time through what? I don't know, because I wasn't reading. But you see some of the tie at the last issue on all of her surveillance setup and why that's actually important to the Death in the Family thing and how that's interesting. What's bizarre, though, is the Joker, who's been fairly meta-omniscient throughout the whole thing, is actually the only person who's been able to one-up through him through this entire event is Amanda Waller, which is interesting, but she also doesn't really do anything with that, which in a way makes the Joker seem more dangerous, but only through the ineptitude of the secret agencies that house the Suicide Squad. It's not a great read, but it doesn't suck either, which just shows that this event's lifting this book up. Controversial book of the month! Batgirl. One of the last few of Gail Simone's, apparently. Or the last one? I don't know actually what issue the cutoff is or when they're going to stop doing it. I imagine they have to write ahead at least a month for the artist to get done, so there's probably at least one more issue, right? God, here's hoping Gail Simone at least gets to finish this bit with the brother. But, they really play up this wedding stuff on the cover. I mean, it's really not... I mean, really... Batgirl isn't going to marry the Joker. I find it weird that they don't bring up Harley in here either, but it's a really sick twist of tale, and you see Batgirl kind of being forced to play the Joker's game to save her mother, but in it you see this clear break. She intends on killing the Joker, and it is legitimate, and it's interesting because she plans to murder him, and part of the justification is for all that he's done, for all that he will do. And it's kind of what you need to see at this point. Like, it's a dark, twisted tale, and they keep flashing back to the Joker talking to someone at Arkham Asylum, who presumably replaced Harley. Before he had his face cut off, though. And you see that building, and you see, like... He's crazy, but he's got a plan, and it just gets creepier and fucking creepier as it goes along. This is definitively, I mean, outside of Batman, the best, well, I guess it is the best tie-in to the Death of the Family. This is awesome. And some of you I know were set off by the first issue not really being a tie-in, but this, now that we're here and we're in it, and I mean, Gail Simone writing creepy characters, it just can't be matched. So here we are, Batman and Robin with Damian facing the Joker, and this gets dark quick. And in this issue, they play with the Joker's face thing. He wears it like upside down, just like it's gross. And then he covers Robin magnets. I mean, the idea, Robins eat bugs, and he really plays on the Robin thing very literally all throughout the issue, and brings up the idea that the partnership was doomed to fail, and he dresses Damian as Robin the entire time and never really plays on the father-son thing. He's just caught up in the mythos. And it works really well, but I mean, it feels like you could do that elsewhere, but here, I don't know, it just, you wanted to see a little bit of that. Like, you think he'd almost be jealous of Robin for the way he's going about it now, because Damian has legitimate ties to Batman. And the Joker, like, has this weird twisted love for Batman. That's what they're playing with this time. And the fact that they're playing more on the Batman-Robin thing and not the Son thing, I find interesting. And part of that, I think, is because of the broken history given Tim Drake and all that. And it feels like he's addressing Tim Drake more than Damian in this issue. And that, it's a fault. It's a small fault, because this is a twisted sick, plays well with the whole tie-in. But I feel like everything Damian says to Joker is Damian, but the way, except for a few reactionary lines specifically, like everything the Joker says to Damian really fit more for Tim, in a way. If Tim was still the Robin, who in my heart I feel is Robin, because that's when I grew up, I guess. I don't know, it doesn't really matter that much. But, I mean, again, I don't know what it is about this tie-in, but this has got to be one of the best tie-ins, because it's just great Joker stories left and right, and it's just bringing out the best in all the creators tied to this right now. Say what you want, it's a lot of comics and yada yada, but these are all solid comics. And then, clearly, if anyone else picks another comic this week, I think they're insane. Because this issue isn't a pick of the week sort of deal. I mean, it's better than Atomic Robo. We're going to say that this week. Atomic Robo was second best this week. But no. This issue of Batman. First off, this cover summarizes this issue perfectly. Batman not only thinking about, but completely consumed by the Joker, encapsulated all in Greg Capullo art. It is this issue in an image, and this issue may not be the single best, greatest, important Batman issue ever, but this issue does something for me that I've been talking about, really nails it, really nails something that's important. It nails the psychology and the reasoning and the exact purpose why the Joker is Batman's greatest villain. It explains so much really about the relationship of the two, and why it's Batman's villain and Joker and Batman is the Joker's villain. Like, it's the dichotomy between these two, and it might have been built up for years and all that, but this issue, like no other point in comics, explains this sort of dichotomy between two characters. And the closest might have been at some point with Brubaker between the Red Skull and Captain America. But this. So what is it about this comic? It's this first page. You should read it for yourself, of course, but the idea that Batman's the world's greatest detective, but he's also a great martial artist, and you see a combination of those kind of written throughout, but this idea that the human eye, when reacting to something, has so many base reactions to display a certain emotion or motive. And then so many variations on those base ideas. And Batman can watch a villain, or anyone really, and tell what their next move is going to be, what they're doing, where they're coming from, based on their eyes. The gateway to the soul. So much to that. He can't read the Joker. His eyes like a bullet the entire time. Looking, but moving, but unwavering sort of deal. Like, that idea, that page, along with this image, which just is, that. And let's take a moment here. This isn't... This is the sort of thing that they sometimes try to do in comics. It doesn't work. It works here. You have this text. This is a creepy image, but on its own, it's just... It's just a picture of the Joker. But what we have here... I mean, if you were to break it down, if you were to read these words at an open mic night at a slam poetry, you get through at least the first round. Like, these words, this page says so much about how the Batman deals with the Joker. It's incredible. This one page is huge, and to open up on this page is just... It sets a tone for this entire thing and this comic and going forward. And it's just... I'm going to go past this, but this page is worth your... It says so much. Okay. Anyways, instead of me starting like a freak, get a moment with Bellic and the Joker doing his thing. But the crux of this comic is past that. The Joker lets Batman escape so that they will meet again. But then the important thing happens. Arguably, there's going to be some issue here because some people are going to point out the continuity isn't completely right. They should have released this comic a little later because there's a little tipping of events to come in other books in the crossover. I don't care. Admittedly, it is a fall point and it is a ding on this book, and that is completely editorial's fault, not the comic's fault. And if anything, it's a fault that shows kind of a mixed blessing with it, because it shows that despite these disparaging stories and them all working, essentially, and elevating the level of each of those comics, it shows that there's an amount of planning and understanding, that in their mind there's kind of a timeline to all these specific events and when he's dealing with each character and when. So, yeah, kind of a tipping. It's nothing as bad as like Civil War revealing that Goliath was killed in Cable and Deadpool before it's actually shown in the main book or anything like that. Like, all the characters tied to this event, it's the Bat family here. You have Red Hood and Nightwing and Batgirl and Red Robin and Robin. God, that's stupid. Anyways, and interestingly, Greg Capullo kind of screwed up here. The Red Hood looks kind of like just a cloth mask as opposed to the actual Red Hood he has, which is weird and whatever, but it looks cool and who cares. Again, slight ding on the book. Bring this book down to a 9.8 out of 10. But all of them are talking about it, and they're like, if the Joker knows who we are, why didn't you tell us this? Why didn't you say something? And Batman's like, he doesn't. And you see Batman, like, fighting this idea, and they're like, and he's like, no, you guys don't understand how he thinks. And Batman sounds insane trying to explain, like, why he knows the Joker. It's interesting because you kind of start seeing the madness when you pull back from it. Or rather, the plan through the madness for the Joker. And they kind of see it too, but they don't care. Batman's separated from the rest of the group because he's like, no, you can't deal with the Joker because you can't think like the Joker. I can. He recalls this event where the Joker slaps a card onto the Batplane. This is like long ago before any of them were a thing. This was forever ago in continuity. And they're all like, he was in. And he's like, no, he couldn't have been in. It's not physically possible. And they're like, he's been doing everything that's impossible. And Batman kind of, if anyone knows the limits of what a human can do, it's Batman. Because he's more fucking impossible than Superman. But you get the sense he's like, no, it's not like we don't know how it happened. It's impossible. And he shows, like, the cavern, and, like, you can't breathe that long, and this and that, and, like, he couldn't hold on to this and that. Like, he stuck a card on, but he did that, and he plays at me, but it's not Bruce Wayne. It's not our identities. It's Batman. He's come at you tangentially in the past, but he's coming at you now because he wants to get to me. And he's kind of cutting it down, and it's just this... It's this bit where you see, like, how tied, like, how really, in so many ways, how Batman is, frankly, kind of obsessed with the Joker on a lighter level, but in a true level, not so much as the Joker's obsessed with him, but it's this weird dichotomy, and it shows that they have this bizarre game between them, this bizarre relationship, and whereas Batman doesn't want it, he's there, and the Joker is the one who creates it, but Batman kind of plays into it, and he won't let anyone else come in because he doesn't feel anyone else is prepared for it, which is very, the one flaw that they allow Batman to have. It's interesting. And then you get this backup with Jock on art, which was, I don't know. But it's this bit with the Riddler and the Joker, and you see the Joker have an appreciation for the Riddler because he does something to Batman that no other villain does. He taxes Batman's mind in a way, and he's like, and you do it to make our king greater because otherwise you get away with it every time. It's just this interesting thing, and it says so much about the Riddler, but it's the Joker coming, and it's interesting because you've seen the Joker interact with so many characters at this point. Of course, he kind of has this hard-on to try to kill the rest of the Bat family. He has this love for Batman, which is kind of unexplained, but the way they're writing it, I'm trying to understand if it's him trying to lift Batman purely to greater heights, or if when he does his in his mind, when he has this grandiose moment with Batman, he wants Batman at his finest. He wants to destroy the king at his finest so that he could rule or something like that. Like, I see two potentials with that mentality, and both are equally like, and it's interesting, and part of it cues in from people like the way Snyder writes versus the way other people write, so it's kind of not even sure if it will come to play, but it's interesting. But with the Riddler here, we're seeing a way he doesn't interact with any other character again. Like Harley, has this weird relationship with. There's that play. We've seen the Penguin now a couple times, him interacting with the Penguin, and he's controlling the Penguin. He knows if he kills the Penguin, it's not as effective as if he plays the Penguin. Because there's still at least a touch of the element of the Crown Prince of crime. Like, Joker's so deadly smart, but he knows when to play a guy, and that element was there, and it was interesting. I'm kind of saddened that we still have the Joker in the Joe's suit instead of the suit, Because although it does kind of work with the grungy thing and the face cut off, but the only character that we've seen the Joker come to with a level of respect, other than Batman now, is the Riddler, and only because he does something to Batman that the Joker cannot. He's the only one who can meet Batman on a level that the Joker can't, basically. And it's this weird, twisted thing, and you see a play with the Riddler. It also kind of answers why the fuck these guys get out of Arkham so damn much. It's bizarre, and this was huge. I mean, wow. If there was this sort of interplay between Spider-Man and Doc Ock, I'd still be on that. But I'm not. So there we are. That was this week. That was a long bit about Batman 15. I hope you guys enjoy that as much as I did. It's an interesting time for comics. Since I did it recently myself, I would push you all, if there's some books you're not feeling as much, switch it up. If it's a character you love but it's not there right now, come back later. They'll most likely be there. Maybe not in some cases. But hey, cheers. Have a happy Wednesday. Have an awesome comic reading. Have an awesome holiday season. And please like and subscribe if it's your first time here. And if it's your second time here and you haven't subscribed, almost more kudos. Also, please go check out Graphics 616. I'm usually a little more happy with the videos we put out there than what I do here week to week. And I'll try to link you guys to the right thing. And oh my god, when am I going to shut up? You guys have a great time. Fucking rock on. Peace.